Hello, good morning.
Hey, Mohammed, how are you? Hey, Thomas.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Maddie.
Hello. Hey, Mohammed. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Manny, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine, thanks.
Yep. Cool.
Maddie, I didn't get back to you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please. No, I'm
No.
go ahead.
It's irrelevant to the meeting. I was just saying something.
Yeah, I was expecting you to reach out.
Yeah, I for good reasons, and I want to talk to you because you'll like what you see. So
Sounds good.
okay, thank you. And Rob, thank you. I got the email in before and after the holidays. So I want to still talk.
Yeah, just let me know what time.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Hi, Henry.
Hey, Henry, how are you?
Morning.
I'm all right. I'm in the middle of moving house, so my Wi-Fi situation is a bit unstable. I'm on my phone at the moment. Hopefully the Wi-Fi will come up shortly.
It's working so far.
Okay, that's good. I think we are one person away from having quorum. Oh, actually, I see that Michael just joined, so that might put us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think 6 is sufficient. So I would like to call this meeting of the Alliance TSC to order. Yeah, I'm gonna have trouble taking notes at present, so maybe Rob and Michael, if you could pull it back to the back.
Yeah, I've already started taking notes. So
Okay, great.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. So the last time I checked, no one had added items to the agenda, but maybe we can do a quick brainstorm around that.
I have, so I can definitely start
Great, thank you. Thank you,
with the
Michael.
topics I added. Is anyone else having trouble hearing Henry, or is it just me?
It's probably the fact that I'm on my my cell phone, but I'm hopeful that my Wi-Fi will be restored in a minute here. The technical support is working behind the scenes.
Okay, it's not bad now. It was. It's a bit muffled sometimes, so kind of sorry if I asked you to.
I'll try to put my phone in a better spot.
Sure. Okay, so let me just kind of close a few things in my desktop, just so that I don't share too much. But one of the things that we've been working with recently, and I can give you a broader context because the two bullets I put in the agenda are somewhat related. So as you know, we've been heavily involved with FPGAs and different kinds of tools for FPGAs, and making FPGAs more like software, which means that we need open source tools as well as IP, as well as other things. But tools have been a particular focus, especially that, you know, tools is also one of the things that CHIPS works with. So much of this work has been historically done as part of a project called SymbiFlow, which was independent of anything. It was obviously supported by Google, it was supported by Micro and a bunch of other entities, but it wasn't specifically a CHIPS Alliance. QuickLogic has also kind of participated and has been participating. They're also a member. And generally speaking, it has been an enabler for the community because anyone that designs ASICs also kind of works with FPGAs by default. And open source tools are very helpful for, you know, prototyping and researching things. So we've been working with those tools for a pretty long while. We've developed a bunch of useful utilities and projects. And one of those is the FPGA tool performance framework. That framework is essentially focused around making sure that whatever we build in terms of open source tooling continues to work and continues to perform. We can see how it behaves confronted with other kinds of tools. There's also multiple choices in the open source FPGA world, for example, VTR or NextPNR for placing routes. So you want to see how well they behave against different designs, and also you want to compare different designs and see where the holes are, and just kind of continue moving forward. So the FPGA toolperf has been a very useful and instrumental in us kind of making progress and not going backwards. It's kind of like SV tests for system Verilog. So we've built this framework. I should have probably prepared some material just to show you the results, but I think we can probably find them online, to be honest. So originally, the FPGA toolperf is of course living inside of SimiFlow, right? It has its own documentation. We're testing different kinds of designs and devices. Let's say an XFPGA, different kinds of designs, and we're having graphs and different types of. I'm not an expert, right? So kind of I'm showing it to you, but I'm not a real user of the tool. But in general, we have quite a lot of data. I mean, you can always make it look prettier and improve the user experience. But in general, this is a very practical and useful framework that we have been using quite a lot to work with those tools on a daily basis. So SimiFlow, as such, was always a temporary, name and temporary situation. We're looking for a place. So that's sorry, the results are not really there. So we were working and looking at how do we make this tool chain sustainable? How do we contribute the things that we're building into a body that would take good care of them? And Chips Alliance kind of appeared and grew in the meantime. It became a good place hosting kind of a lot of useful projects, and we think all the FPGA stuff we're doing fits there very well. We also have, as you know, a number of FPGA vendors either in or applying to become part of a Chips Alliance, and one of their interests is in that particular body of work. So yeah, essentially that's the history of FPGA toolperf. It's not the only project to be applying, but it's kind of big enough and separate enough that we decided to kind of make it into a separate application. For now, we're kind of proposing that Tom, who I think is with us today, is going to be the primary contact for that project too. We haven't actually had that situation before, so I think it could be an open debate how it works. But our proposal is that we don't want to necessarily kind of grow the TSC disproportionately. So it's not that we want Tom to have 2 votes. It's fine for him to just kind of represent both projects and have a single seat on the TSC. But at the same time, the project is kind of a separate tool that deserves its own life. And perhaps, of course, over time, we'll decide that, hey, let's merge this and that project together. But for now, we think it's kind of useful to have it as a separate tool. And then over time, other SimiFlow tools will also be joining. You might remember there is already the FPGA interchange format. That's part of Chips Alliance that Maciej is heading. So yeah, this is the second project in the series. It's not going to be 50 projects, right? I think in total, it's probably going to be 4 at most, but just mentioning this, that's kind of our proposed solution. We did a sandbox application for now because we thought it's a good, what you call it? It's a good practice, right? To get the sandbox application through first and then figure out the remaining stuff for the graduation application. But yeah, that's the whole background. And I wanted to perhaps, like, I initially wanted to kind of put it forward for a vote, but before the meeting. But then I thought, it's better to have a short discussion here and hear your thoughts, and then kind of do a vote interactively if we're ready.
Yeah, that all sounds good to me. Should we go ahead and vote on it?
Well, this I apologize. I'm a new member, so I don't know if I'm familiar enough. So maybe I'll exclude myself for now. Or Mike, if you could just the yes or no is on publishing or what?
Oh yeah, let's explain it, because like Mohammed
Yeah.
needs to know this anyway, so it's a good place to do that. So essentially, the whole point of these applications, I mean, and by the way, at the sandbox level, it does not yet carry much. It doesn't do anything really. Of course, we're going to apply for the next level almost immediately, right? So kind of by then, it's pretty good to know what you're voting for. But just saying that the vote today is not going to be like very dramatic. It's essentially on allowing this project to transfer into and join CHIPS Alliance. It's basically means typically that the GitHub gets moved into CHIPS Alliance, that the person leading that project gets a seat on the TSC.
And what was the project again?
The FPGA tool performance framework.
This one, the one that okay, the one we have. Yep.
I mean, the application contains the information. It's basically describes the project, and you might have kind of seen it because the things that we're doing for VTR, and it's all using FPGA tool perf. Really, it's just
so,
that we have.
So this is an event where somebody is moving a project to the CHIPS Alliance umbrella, and then the CHIPS Alliance technical committee is deciding.
We do have to vote on it because otherwise someone
whether
will say, why is
it's going to be under your umbrella. It's going to be under the CHIPS Alliance umbrella, right?
Yes.
I'd say the criteria for a sandbox application basically boils down to like, does this seem like a reasonable project that could fit under the umbrella of CHIPS Alliance? And did they fill out all the fields of the application completely and, in our opinion, correctly or sufficiently? I think at the next phase is where the sort of more stringent set of requirements starts to come into play with regards to like talking about how the project is going to be managed.
And how about the frequency of updates? Like, I would believe it would need to be non-dormant, like something that's being updated, or maybe it's something really cool that it's going to transfer to some other developer.
I think let's
right now.
Michael, can you scroll down and let's look at the fields for graduation as well.
So as you can see, some of the fields are kind of like meant to gather information about, what's the sustainability of the project. Now, we're not going to measure it like in a very stringent fashion, because there is no way to compare like open roll versus chisel. But yeah, we try to at least take reasonable care that if someone says, well, it's my own project and nobody else is using it, then we're like, okay, well, then perhaps it's not the best idea. But there is the question of, who else is using it, right? And actually probably do a better job, because I will fix this, because, we should probably say, to the measurement performance of various present the results for human resolve form. The project is used by Google and wider open source FPGA community.
Thank you for just rolling that. I appreciate it.
I think that's a meaningful addition, because that's the kind of thing we want to encourage, and it's obvious for me, but it might not be obvious for someone else reading this application. So thanks for asking the question, because it allowed us to improve the. Yeah, I think I'll just do this. So, any more questions? Do you think we could vote on this? I mean, feel free to ask more. It's like that's the whole point of the TSC meetings. It's like we want everyone on the TSC to be on the same page with things.
Well, it seems, I don't know if this project, just another process related question. So you were aware of it, but does the rest of the team know about it before? Like that this project existed and then this was a question mark, or this is the first time this is introduced?
So probably not everybody on this call knows about it, but it's strictly because we're working with a lot of different things, right? So it's similar with other projects that have been joining before. It's like not everyone at TSC will necessarily be able to be aware of all the projects, right? Because let's say there's some chisel related stuff. If you're not using it, like for you, it's always going to be a new thing.
Yeah. So my purpose from the question is that I am like you mentioned what the project is. So basically, if I am allowed to vote this time, it would be based on input that I heard here versus me going to look at it and finding more information and verifying something like this. So I'm basically going to be following the experts in that case.
Yeah, in that sense, I think it's based on trust, in the sense that, of course, if someone sees legitimate reasons why we need more time to decide, it's good to raise it. I think that the whole point of sandbox applications is that we're gonna pass it through sandbox, and then and that's only an expression of intent, right? And then we're gonna do an offline vote for. We're gonna add more information, take your feedback, perhaps put more information in the email that we can send out to, and so then you will have all the time you need to do any research you want to do, and typically we do those votes. Typically we do those votes actually offline, right? It's just that I wanted to have a discussion about.
Yeah, and sandboxes in this case, we're still in the process of.
It's still not in CHIPS Alliance formally. It's just like an expression of intent, right?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So it's kind of a non-harmful vote, let's say. And of course, then we'll put forward a vote via email, right? And then, of course, everyone, even people that are not on this call today, will be able to participate in that vote. And then, I mean, we could go straight for the main application, right? There is no reason why we couldn't do this, but I did want to have the discussion. First of all, because we're going to make Tom the leader so that we don't have too many people, sitting in the TSC. Secondly, just a heads up, it's ISC license. That's one thing. It's ISC license like many of our projects, but we have come up with a way to incorporate non-Apache license projects, and that basically boils down to a due diligence procedure where we get everyone to sign the CHIPS Alliance CLA, right? Also for Mohammed's information. So you have a project. If you have a project that's open source but not following Apache, what you need to do to be able to include this project is to get everyone that has over 1% of contributions to sign the CLA. So for any project that we kind of propose this way, we will have already done this, because there's no point in trying to apply a project and then finding out that someone didn't sign a CLA. So for this particular project, we have already performed this, and I think there's only 3 authors or something, so it was very simple. But just a heads up. And the sandbox is where this is not yet required, right? But the next vote is where this is actually like a legal requirement for the due diligence to be positive, like for us to be able to say nobody that owns more than 1% of the code hasn't signed the CLA. Everyone that kind of has any claim to say I did this has signed the Chips Alliance CLA, so they can't go after us and say, "Oh, I changed my mind. I want money for patents now." It's kind of that's the whole point of the
Makes
exercise.
sense. Yeah, got it. And by the way, is there the set of licenses do you go for, or do you take it a case by case?
Well, Apache 2 is like the default, and
Yeah.
anything
Okay.
else, we have already kind of onboarded some projects with ISC because that has been a very popular license with some of the projects that we wanted to have. We have debated other. I think Rob, you can fill it in.
Yeah, I was just
but-
gonna, yeah, no, I was just gonna add that the corporate legal team that helps Chips Alliance has come up or formulated a set of pre-approved licenses, about 10 licenses that are just effective, carte blanche effective for acceptance of projects into Chips. Now, there are many open source licenses, as we all know, and they will certainly entertain other licenses too, but it's just that they're providing a list of what is acceptable up front.
And Apache 2.0 is one, and that's what we use actually in many of the things as well. Okay. Thanks.
I mean, it's valid that we should perhaps, kind of think about putting that information down somewhere in this repository, right? It could be a good idea to. I don't remember the whole structure of this, but generally speaking, we have the CLAs. That's where the projects live. That's where you make the pull requests, right? These are formal proposals. I don't think we've had any.
Okay.
And these are the work groups. Not all of them are described actually, so not.
Okay.
Generally speaking, we have the technical charter committed here. Code of conduct contributing is, I think, one that we could potentially put this in. But yeah, because I don't think we have this properly written down, Rob, and I think it could be a good addition to one of those documents.
Yep.
Yeah, in terms of acceptable licensing items, Michael, you were saying?
Yes, we would
Yes.
still have to write. The details are found in the Chips Alliance IP policy.
Right.
This does not override the Chips Alliance IP policy, but in general, these are the guidelines. I think that is potentially where we should put this information. So
Okay.
things to do prior to contributing.
And the CLA itself, I don't see a link for it. Is it in the policy or?
The CLA is here. I mean, we have four
okay,
CLAs,
got
two
it.
versions of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you. I hope you don't mind. There's some navigating questions to get oriented.
No.
But, so thank you.
It's better to do this online than for you to wonder how it worked for the months to come, right? So.
No, I think it was beneficial. I think it was beneficial.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Okay.
Should we do a sandbox vote? Is that okay, Mohammed? Or
I'm okay with that. Yes, please. If my vote is started to count now. So.
Okay, so I think I'm not good at this because Brian is not with us, and he was always kind of the person that was initiating votes and stuff. Do I have to motion for a vote, Henry?
I think that's correct. Put it forward.
Motion
Put
to
the
vote
motion.
So I put forward a motion for voting to accept the FPGA tool performance framework as into the sandbox phase of Chips Alliance.
I'll second it.
I.
Same here.
All right.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Do we have Tom's vote? I didn't hear.
Yeah. And I think that Rob, you said that somebody is taking notes. I don't see them in the official notes document.
That's because I was just doing this impromptu, so I will transfer it over. I'm doing it in Microsoft OneNote.
Okay,
Oh.
sure.
I will move it up.
Microsoft OneNote is
Okay, sure. I just ask because I could take the notes here, but if you're taking them offline and okay, I will.
I can, well, I can move it over right now. Just tell
Okay,
me,
sure.
I just need to know what the
I think
official
everyone
location.
voted yes in the end. The location, I can paste the.
Yeah, if you could, I will immediately put that over.
How do you? Okay, I'll stop sharing for a second because that'll put up the. Oh, Henner, you're here. I think
I'm here.
You're marked as
I'm-
absent. Oh no, you're not. Okay, I was mistaken.
I was on
Oh, yeah,
vacation
no,
yesterday,
sorry.
so it might have been just potentially absent.
Let me just paste the table and fix.
Okay, I put my notes in there.
Yes.
Oops.
Maybe okay. I think that the table now reflects the. Okay, so.
Sorry if I messed you up.
I'll format the notes a little bit.
Okay, sorry if I messed you up, by the way.
Oh, and by the way, because let me think about it. So, could you remind me, Mohammed, which project you were leading? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah. So right now I don't have a specific project, but I'm tagged to start and activate the annual working group. So.
Right. Oh, that makes sense then. So essentially, kind of the voting members of the TSC are anyone who leads a project, right? So technically, you wouldn't actually be voting. I just realized that looking at the table. So, but it was still useful for you to learn these things.
Yeah. Okay.
But
that's
practice,
why that's why I was cautious about not presumptuous.
No, I don't think anything changes in this sense that we just need the majority of the TSC to say yes, and no one to raise any kind of significant problems. Just a heads up that it's basically anyone can join the TSC meetings, like it is an open meeting, it's being recorded and so on, but to vote you have to kind of lead a project. I was somehow convinced that you were, and you probably will be at some point when something gets contributed from the area that kind of you're managing. But at this point, we only have 8 voting members. Okay, yeah, that's why we need Brian or his replacement to keep track of these things.
That should start. I'm talking to the person who will be Brian's replacement next Wednesday. So a person was identified. I have not met them yet, though.
I'll change the fonts of what she pasted to be in line with the other stuff. And then just shift tab stuff to, oh no. Right. That wasn't a great idea. I hate formatting and what you see is what you get tools. We'll clean it up later. Thanks for taking notes anyway. It's kind of better to have badly formatted notes than not have any notes whatsoever.
Yes, agreed.
I'll fix later. Okay. So that was the vote that we wanted to take today, and the broader context is the FPG tools that we want to donate into Chips Alliance. perhaps one kind of aspect of this is also the naming pattern. Essentially, we're checking this with Linux Foundation Legal. I don't know, Rob, if you've had
No, I did.
indication if the name works.
I have had no indication. Let me re-ping Scott. I sent him the mail last Monday, so perhaps it got lost in the holiday shuffle on his side. So let me ask him again.
Okay, so actually, I'll kind of cover it some other time, because I think we need a confirmation that the name is, legit, and then
Okay.
we'll be able to make sure that everything is prepared to. But generally speaking, the Symbifold project will be renamed. Perhaps that's as much as we need to know at this stage. We'll find a name that's kind of not in any way controversial, and kind of not trademarked or something. And then we'll kind of rename the project, and we're gonna push it into CHIPS Alliance to govern. And we have University of Toronto joining, who are kind of leading the VTR work. So one of the most prominent parts of the entire tool chain are kind of already in CHIPS. And of course, QuickLogic, who's a user, and Micro, who's developing, and Google, who's kind of also developing the tools and using the tools as well, are members, right? And the plan is to, based on the interchange work that we're doing, the plan is to also get Xilinx and Lattice and others potentially to join us. That's the rough sketch of a plan for our FPG working group that we're setting up. Does anyone have questions or comments on this plan? If not, then that's all I had.
No, that's good.
Does anyone have any open issues? Anything that has popped up in your work, the respective projects that TSC needs to take care of?
I think I have an issue about the swan type population. I'm Joe Yang, and nice to see you. So the issue is the 18.5 TSC ticket in 18.5. Maybe I can share my screen.
You mean the sonotype request, right? I'll paste it to the chat. Yeah.
Yes. So we are going to publish these two repositories into sonotype under the CHIPS Alliance project. This will be the infrastructure of our SoC design, and we are trying to rewrite a new RISC-V32 IMAC KBV core and Tynink based SoC, but we might rewrite Tynink. So these two repository will be our infrastructure, and we are going to have a lot of tests on them, but currently it might be a little stored by the sonotype publishing flow. It has been 3 months. So I want to poke at this thing and trying to get it smooth to run.
Rob, I think you kind of know a little bit about this, but in general, Brian's been kind of mostly involved with this, and Brian sadly is no longer kind of managing our project. That's why I assume this has been stalled in this way.
That's probably correct. Yes, I'm unfortunately. I mean, Jay and I did chat here 2 weeks ago on a related topic, but I'm not aware of this particular issue. So I can reach out to Brian and ask about it, or to see what's going on with it.
Sure.
We did have a discussion about this before. I don't remember if it was TSC or the board.
So I brought this up several months ago because the Chisel working group also wants this. Basically, any group that is trying to publish Java-based, like JVM-based artifacts is going to want to use the Maven to do so, which means interacting with Sonatype. And if we want these artifacts to be published under the sort of umbrella of the entity of Chips Alliance, then there's some amount of central organization is needed in that, like, a Chips Alliance email has to be used to register the organization with Sonatype. I've paged out whatever the other requirements were, but basically it wasn't something I had. While I technically approve of the direction and think it's going to be a popular choice for JVM-based projects, which includes Scala, for example, which the tools Xiaoyang is talking about use. I don't know. I don't have any insight into what sort of the legal implications or concerns were on Brian's side, but yeah, I did bring this up in the past because of the Chisel working group, which again, Chisel is a Scala-based tool. They also were requesting this because they would rather start. They've been publishing past releases, I think, from chisel.org or something, but they would rather use, or I should say org.chisel because it's like JVM strings, but they would rather use like org.chipsalliance.chisel or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I brought this up in the past, but was not able to make any headway other than Brian saying he would look into it.
Okay, I suspect. Now, thank you for articulating that, Henry. That helps me. So let me follow up with him and our new project manager to see if we can get this moving. And sure. I apologize that this got stalled, but it looks like it was a case of the ball being dropped. So
it's okay. I think this didn't block Chisel since Chisel has been publishing the artifacts to Uzbekistan.
Oh yeah, they're using Berkeley.
Yes, and this two repository is still experimental, and I just pull them up out of Rocketship, and we are going to have an intensive test on them. So before this test and before Chisel 3.5 release, this won't block us at all. But hopefully, I think if we can make these two repository publish it at Chisel 3.5, that will be much better. Maybe 1 month or 2 months later.
Yeah, I think that would be a nice improvement to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me find out. I mean, I certainly appreciate the desire to use Maven.
Yeah.
For these different projects.
And by the way, that is exactly what the TSC is here for. It's just unfortunate that this got stuck with Brian's departure from the project.
Thank you, guys.
Very well, thank you for bringing it up.
So any kind of procedural or infrastructural needs is kind of the area of our operation. And good practices, community building these should be our focal points. I could raise one potential topic that I think is kind of useful to discuss. Is we're discussing, of course, plans for 2022, and one of the things that we have been debating is how to handle events. One of the ideas that has been circulated is to create, I mean, we still want some independent events that we're going to run, but we'd also like to try kind of sticking, our events to other popular events that might be happening, such as, LinuxCon or DAC/Whisky Summit next year. Generally speaking, of course, it depends on what's possible, how much things cost, and so on. We don't want to necessarily generate a lot of costs, but it's more a way of leveraging the existing marketing and community and attendance of shows that already have people attending them anyway, and they might be interested in some of the topics that we're working on, and that's of course going to be open source shows, and specifically open source hardware when they happen, right? We'd love to do kind of joint promotion and be able to attract people that are kind of in neighboring areas. So I think it might be a good strategy, but of course wanted to get your thoughts on this and ideas for shows we want to target and so on. Or perhaps hear that it's a dumb idea. That's also okay.
I don't think it hurts to mention it just for awareness. So, I mean, we do talk about, for example, working with Open Power, possibly on a joint event. So I'm going to chat with James Kalina about that. I think also, given the size of CHIPS right now, we don't have enough budget to host or foster an entire event on our own, but we can certainly partner with others to help raise awareness and help build the community. So Michael and I have had some conversations about that. So that's kind of the idea.
So Rob, did you check with Boris about doing something with SSCS? I didn't follow up on that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Boris, and I can't remember the other two folks' names. We chatted last Wednesday about this idea. And I think there's good alignment in terms of, philosophy and what, both organizations are trying to do. So ISSC this year budgeted $100,000 for MPWs amongst the different submissions that they had. And I can send you the summary note that I wrote on this. But, okay. Basically, I think there's good alignment and definitely.
Well, I was thinking more about, some conference like ISSCC or VLSI where, you can do partner. It's going to be hard for ISSCC, but, there's conferences like CICC or, that might be open to this idea. So
yes,
maybe,
no, that makes sense. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you brought that up with Boris and what was his thought about it?
We didn't discuss necessarily about joint PR relative to like the ISSC conference, but I don't think that's necessarily out of the question, right? I think he would be amenable to that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's worth exploring that because we're trying, you're aware of the workshop, so that's we're trying to do that, but like trying to make this happen would be great as well. And Chips Alliance would be pushing for the open source IC design, and that would be really helpful to get some visibility in the circuits community.
Right, I agree. Right. Because I know, we, as you well know too, right? We just chatted about the overall challenge of getting people interested in the circuit world, right, or the design world, and trying to get new students or folks, younger folks involved and interested in it. So I think the open source mechanism is a great way to accomplish that.
Yeah, and then the IEEE program, the PICO program that we've been working with them on, is they decided that all the projects that are output from that are going to be open source, and some of them are really. This is part of the things that I'm looking at. Is that how do we again check and bring in some of them if if they qualify, and some of them are really good and potentially can be used in commercial applications.
Yeah, Mohammed, do you recall? I don't recall off the top of my head, but how many submissions they've had for this year? It was a pretty good number, as I recall.
10.
10. Okay.
And there's also on the side also Stanford. Also, they have designs that they submitted as well that are open source. So there are multiple, and a lot of them are a good portion of them is analog. So it's a part of that, and I agree. Like for example, one of the things that Boris said. So this is the magazine, the Circuits and Solid Circuits magazine. So this one had an article presenting 4 of these 10 these projects. So there's the opportunity to have something marketed with the CHIPS Alliance obviously is important. What we need to have a process for one-off projects, okay? Because you may end up with like a small IP. How do you handle that? And so we need to talk about that for sometime later or whatever. But because not all of them necessarily going to be the something major that has a team to do, and then contributing the project. Is it the university or is it the solid circuits because they paid, whatever? So there are things to be addressed here, but I think Boris would be open to it. I'm certainly on the other side. I'm open to it because I've been talking to Boris about talking about these projects as much as possible. So now I don't know. So as Mehdi said, it does not necessarily may not be the ISSCC. Could be other options, other forums or conferences rather. So just need to be decided with them how do you do it. In this case, the event may be a half a day or something like the workshop that's done before for the CHIPS Alliance, the inaugural workshop, for example.
That's a good point. I do think, based upon my conversation with them last Wednesday, they are definitely open to different ideas, and we're very welcoming relative to the concept of a partnership.
And you did actually say that Stanford is joining, right?
That's what Boris has told me. Yes.
So, and in that case, that actually makes not just that if you speak for Boris with the Stanford hat.
Well, I don't want to speak for Boris.
No. I mean, I'm sorry. If Boris speaks in Stanford hat, then there is basically a case to say, okay, the designs that were paid for by Stanford also, if they're open source and high, and qualified, they could be also contributed to the CHIPS Alliance, as well as the events. There's both.
That is true. Yeah, he's very favorable on Stanford joining CHIPS. Stanford already is a member of the Linux Foundation. I provided him with the contact person at Stanford who facilitates membership in the LF.
Yep. Okay. Great. You just need somebody to start moving their butt for the analyst.
Do you say that again? Sorry.
You need somebody to start moving their butt for the analog stuff, at least.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did have that conversation with Mark Horowitz, so that was,
No, I'm talking about my delinquent. My
Oh,
delinquent.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, these
So
are the guys here to help encourage you.
Yeah. Great.
I mean, if you need help, maybe Mehdi would be interested in working with you. Not to put you on the spot, Mehdi, or either of you, but just a friendly suggestion.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Already working with Muhammad.
Yeah. So I've been talking to Mehdi and other members, but just to be honest, the company, we're raising money, we're finishing a bunch of tape outs, so it's just the forefront is taking intensive technical work with internally, but that's why. But I don't want to continue to do that. So to continue to let it slip.
I understand. No, I know everyone's got quote unquote day jobs, so I fully understand that.
But actually, I don't want to set the example as a day job as the excuse. I actually, once I started, I don't want to. So part of me says, let's start it later, but consistently keep making progress rather than starting and having off and on. Right. So
I understand.
Yeah. That said, by the way, I've been talking to different people about the options. So there are companies, there are new startups, for example, that are trying to build open source services or things like that. So I've been having like conversations in the background related to that. Anyway, I don't want to take the time here more, but I just wanted to update that since I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Perhaps we should leave it there for now. Unless anyone has anything else they'd like to discuss.
So I have a question here. Can we maybe try to have a plan for the next meeting, just like to have a
yes, that's a good idea.
Structure on what's happening and what we should prepare for, because I feel kind of lost at the beginning, and it would be nice like to just clarify the goals of the meeting, and then we can be ready for that. If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yes.
So we need a lead for that, or some. I don't want to be passive, so I'd be really happy to help. I just don't know how, or how to contribute. So that's why I think it would be nice to have that.
I think one of the things to do is definitely just going through the pull requests and issues in the TSC repo, and just adding things to the Google Doc where we keep the notes in, kind of pasting a table with the attendance and like little things that just kind of make things run smoothly. We definitely need to improve on that. I kind of put in 2 agenda items, but of course I only did this, like half a day before the meeting. So of course we should kind of plan to do it a bit earlier. I think it was one of the challenges was that we were voting on the time for this meeting until almost the very last moment. So nobody knew that it was happening with a huge advance notice.
but I assume we should plan the next one with enough advance notice that everyone knows when it's happening and kind of everyone can put forward whatever they want to talk about.
Yeah, that sounds good, Michael. I think one thing, going to the issues is nice, but then we need to, if we have an elaborated plan, we probably want to progress that. Like we need to set up basically the goals and how to achieve those goals. And I feel like we're trying to collaborate, and this is the goal of Chips Alliance. That's my understanding, but it doesn't feel like we are there yet.
Yes, of course. In the broader sense, it makes absolute sense to try to push a broader plan. It's I think it is something that kind of we've been having this discussion in the board as well, right? Where we're debating what's the best way to spend our energy, and we're in general agreement, but like the devil's in the details. And that vision needs to then be communicated to the TSC, and kind of we should be involved in making it happen on the technical level. And I'm not saying we have no influence on the vision, right? I think we should as a steering committee. But yeah, certainly that's something that we'd be very happy to kind of codify in some way, right? It doesn't have to be very formal, but it might be a good idea for not only for the board to have some plans, but for the TSC to have some kind of a longer term ambition and goals.
Got it.
So an excellent idea. Let's put it into life and try to write something up.
Yeah, and it's
always
the same.
hesitant to volunteer for one more thing, but perhaps I should just to set up a doc and kind of start typing.
Yeah, it's the same thing that I'm trying to address in the analog working group. Okay, so
yeah. So Michael, you mentioned last time there was a blog idea, to summarize the workshops, and so I don't know if that progressed somehow, or is there something specific I can do on my side to help that go forward?
I think that's kind of got stuck a little bit on people's input because we had described our parts, but I don't think there was anyone else that contributed. But it's good you're kind of mentioning this. I'll put it in the notes, and we definitely need. It wasn't about the workshop per se. It was more like recent developments in various work groups.
Is there a format we can follow, or template or something? I think you shared the empty Google Doc. Or
there is a document where we already described the stuff that we were doing, right? Here's the doc.
Okay.
Might not be shared with everyone yet, but no, you have access, right?
Yeah, I do have access. Thank you.
So basically, we wrote up 2 bits, but then nobody else kind of provided any input. So we did.
Yeah, I mean, it just need like what is going to be mentioned. If it is an article, what you are putting is already a lot. So then maybe we can have a story, right?
And we could cut down the parts that we'd entered, right? It was just like as a prompt, like here's the stuff that we've been doing as part of Chips Alliance, of course. And then it's not all of it, but it's kind of the things that we thought mattered at least 2 months ago when we wrote it. So like you can essentially describe some developments in OpenPASOK, and like if everyone just puts in a bit on what's been going on, we can shape this into a blog note. It's very hard for us to kind of come up with like a consistent strategy to encompass all this information without actually having this information, right? Like even if you put it in bullet form, it's already something that we can work with.
I see.
So like it's hard to work with an empty piece of paper other than saying we want to write about the technical updates, which of course is a very generic thing to say. But if you say in OpenPASOK we'd managed to do this, this, and this, and someone else says in the analog work group we did this, this, and this, then in total you look at the bullets and you say, oh, the overarching theme seems to be this. Let's kind of write the note in this direction, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
But thank you for bringing it up, because indeed it's something we just lost track of.
Yeah, I'll try to fill up.
It's good talking to you guys. I'm gonna have to drop. Thank you. Have a good week.
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks everyone.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye, guys.